One Piece chapter 1167 is here. It was amazing. This was a 10 out of 10 chapter. I'll just say it right off the bat. So many amazing character moments, so many great reveals and implications. We're gonna have to spend a lot of time talking about Harald in this video. So much to talk about. We're gonna start with Harald because we start the chapter off with Harald, but we're just gonna talk about it briefly, and we're gonna come back and talk about him a lot more in a few moments. But I do love seeing Morgan's kind of collecting data, collecting stories and information on the street. I, of course, initially when they were talking about this big beast and while they were fishing, I thought of Thriller Bark and the emu looking, which before we knew about emu, thing out yonder in the distance. But they cleared that right up. That's not what it is. And then we turn the page and we see it's Harald. Harald is the one terrorizing ships, not just pirate ships, even though we see him attacking a pirate ship. Anyway, the art around this of Harald jumping out from the mist, this looming gigantic figure jumping out of the mist and attacking, and his face too. You know, there's no glee in his face as he does this. His face is very, it's not even shadowed so much. It's just sort of stoic and somber almost. Like, he doesn't seem to be reveling in this new job that he's taking. Of course, one wouldn't assume so. He was supposed to be a peacekeeper, a peacemaker. That was his goal. That was his dream. He just wanted Elbaf to be recognized by the world government, to be protected. He believed in peace. He didn't want to team up with rocks because that would potentially harm his country, having peaceable relations with other countries, making up for their past, redeeming themselves from their past in other civilian eyes and in the world government eyes. He desired peace. He desired for his country to be at peace with the rest of the world, no matter what it takes. And again and again and again, we see Harald putting himself in the place of violence, extreme violence, in order to attain that peace, be it attempting to murder his best friend, be it being a blockade for the world government while they commit some kind of atrocity on God Valley. He may not know exactly what's happening there, but he knows it isn't good, and he knows that he's supposed to stop rocks from getting there. Be it attacking pirate ships or ships that have been deemed pirates by the world government, you know, whether they're actually ne'er-do-wells or not. Maybe they were. Maybe they all were. Maybe he was only stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Regardless of if he's attacking only baddies or not in this particular instance, the point is that this is a man who had set himself on the course of bringing peace between his nation and others, and in order to accomplish that again and again, he's agreed to be put into a position of violence, things that go completely against his morals and his values in order to attain that peace. He's become a contradiction of himself in order to go down this path. And of course, last chapter, knowing that he has caused the harm and the death of people that he loves, knowing that that is on his shoulders, has said, but I can't stop going down this path now, otherwise it's all worthless. Otherwise all my efforts have been for nothing. Otherwise I lose everything, so I just have to keep going. I see how detrimental and harmful and awful this path is, but I just have to keep walking down it. And here we are. We see him with what I perceive as a very somber face as he continues walking down this path. Now again, I'm going to talk more about Harald later. Didn't intend to even go this long here. We're going to talk more. I have a lot of Harald thoughts moving forward, but he has become such a tragic character, a very frustrating character to watch in this particular chapter. But he's become such a tragic character because he's so determined to be on this path, and he only sees the world government as the avenue for that peace for 1,000 years of servitude, if it means that he can get this for his kingdom. Meanwhile, his kingdom is infighting amongst themselves, saying your blood isn't good enough, so we're gonna kill you. We'll go to war with each other. No, that person can't be on the throne because we don't like that particular kind of giant blood. even within his own country, as he's fighting for peace for his country with the rest of the world, his own country can't have peace among themselves because they don't have a strong ruler sitting on the throne actually guiding them and leading them. His family is in shambles and they're at each other's throats. The brothers hate each other. The country hates each other in the different regions. Why? Because Harold is absent and he's not proclaiming peace in his own country, but he's fighting for peace everywhere else through violence. It's such a tragic story. I said I'd talk about him later, and I will. We get a glimpse of other people who might become the forces of their era. Blackbeard, Whitebeard, that's not his name. Kaido, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Shiki, Tongue Guy, Caribou's father probably, and Roger. And I love this picture of Roger, you know, cheering, all of his crew cheering alongside of him. Shanks looking so happy, Buggy doing the Nika dance. Like, what a great picture. And also really interesting to look at Shanks here with sheer joy right at the front of this group, but later he's gonna claim that he despised everything about that life. Ooh, I have a lot to say about that as well. So we get some really interesting information about the world government in this chapter. Particularly, we learn that they recruited a bunch of giants to help them, but also we learn about the different levels of covenants that they create. The Shallows Covenant, we have the Depths Covenant, and the Abysmal Covenant. So we have 3 different covenants for people that have come close enough within this inner circle that still don't actually know about Emu, or some of them don't know about Emu, but they're getting closer to that information and they're working their way toward the kind of servitude and trust and reverence that would be required before you would be trusted with information of the world, or the way they put it is, then you will know the true depths of the world. But they also talk about, the true God. So you see kind of the way, we get a lot more information on how they view Emu, which we already knew that there was a lot of reverence and devotion there, but we're getting a closer look into the way that they actually refer to him, and more on the system that you have to go through in order to actually get this information, and that the circle is a little bit wider than I thought it was of those that do know about Emu. Oh, it bothers me so much to see him get the tattoo, you know, of the first covenant, and he just looks down and he's like, wow, this is great, thanks guys. I gotta be honest, I did a lot of Harold mocking in my read-through of this chapter because he's just so slappable in this chapter.
You pitiful, spineless wimp of a man! You have all the strength and none of the wisdom. Veins, mark my words. I'll be a knight before you. My mistake.
You know, watching him be so doting in panels where he's like, I'm grateful for this honor, I'll do anything you ask of me, or acting like a whimpering pup in other panels. Like he is a strong, powerful, capable giant. Excuse me, sorry, my voice. Acting like a kicked pup. And he is that, essentially, at this point. I mean, he's pledged himself to servitude for 1,000 years in order to buy his people's freedom. And he will he views this situation similar to Odin or to Kuma when he was trying to save his daughter, where it's like, great, use me, abuse me, that's great, just help the people that I love. We do get to see Harold speaking with King Neptune, which is so funny to see the scale of this, because King Neptune is, you know, so massive, but then next to Harold, he actually looks quite small. But they clearly have a lot of camaraderie, they clearly have a great friendship as well. Harold, even in the midst of all of the turmoil that he's going through at this point in his life, I mean, I really do think that his story is incredibly tragic. And I don't think that the tragedy is lost on him. I think he very clearly sees what a tragic path he's chosen for himself. He just sees it as the only path to bring freedom to his people. And so he deals with it despite, you know, how sad it is that this is what his life has become. So the fact that he can just lean back and laugh and really let go and have genuine joy in this moment is really nice to see as a contrast to the humiliation that he's putting himself through in the name of freedom. They speak of a potential betrothal between Loki and Shiroshi, which is very interesting now that it's very likely that Shiroshi is the one that he was speaking to on the snail phone at the beginning before all the flashback stuff started. Really poor selling point though here with Neptune. He's like, no, I think my daughter would be a good match for your son. Really, she's gonna be born with wild disruptive powers. Like, that's not a great selling point. You haven't really made her seem desirable with this. You've made her seem intimidating. But I don't know, maybe to a giant who was very wild and disruptive in his youth, maybe he's like, that sounds great for my son. I mean, it did work. Harold did say, in that case, great, you know? So it's funny, anyway, that Loki had this potential betrothal that was kind of being negotiated when he was a baby, and then eventually Lola was a betrothal for him. Was it Lola? I'm questioning myself on that, but you know who I'm talking about, Big Mom's daughter. But the important thing that I want to get to here is that he ends up calling her Shaggy, assumedly because her dad is Shaggy, and he says, she will not be Shaggy. And who is Loki talking to on the snail phone? It's someone he calls Shaggy. So it sounds like she must have at some point told him that that was her nickname, given to her by his father, and then Loki thought that was funny, and he's like, okay, so you're Shaggy to me now. Anyway, apparently this is a theory that's been going around for a long time. I didn't know this. Actually, one of my patrons did say that he told me this was his theory a year ago, and I just don't remember it, so I guess I did know it, and I've forgotten. But kudos to everyone who thought this. Like, to anyone who actually went with this theory that it was Shiroshi, really impressive, because that did not cross my mind. I will say, like 2 months ago probably, I reread all of Elbaf up to the flashback, and on my first read, I thought that the snail phone was Shaggy because the person that he was talking to, the nickname was Shaggy because the person he was talking to is, you know, Shaggy, has a shaggy beard or something like that. That was my first read of it. But when I did my reread a couple months ago, it came off more to me that the snail phone was not meant to represent the person on the other side, rather that the snail phone was weatherproofed, and it had this sort of like fur, like a coat, basically, like a fur accessory put over it in order to make it able to survive in the winter tundra of the underworld. So I actually, on my reread of Elbaf, I didn't perceive the snail phone as meant to reflect the appearance of the person on the other side, but rather as just weatherproofed. So as I'm reading this and learning that Shaggy is just a nickname for Shiroshi, not confirmed, but probably, that seems to be what Oda is telling us, that makes perfect sense to me, especially because of knowing, you know, that Shiroshi, or Shaggy on the other side, was talking about, you know, being shaken to her core, being overwhelmed by what's happened, really, really bothered by something, that maybe Shiroshi has gone through something kind of terrible at a reverie recently, and pretty much for her entire life, honestly, she's had a rough one. Much like Loki, they could do some serious trauma bonding over the snail phone for however long. I mean, Loki's been tied up for a long time, so they've had time to talk. But that was a really fun reveal to me because I did not consider Shiroshi as an option at all. And I do really like the idea because the themes that Oda explored in Fishman Island and the themes that he's exploring in Elbaf certainly do go together quite well. Very similar struggles are present in culture as well as in their own individual lives, being born and thought of as a tool, losing their moms in extremely tragic ways and being very isolated. Obviously there's strong differences in their stories, but there's also a lot of similarities, and I would love to have these characters, to be able to sit with these characters a little bit more, get to know them a little bit more, and see how those parallels really bloom as we get more time with them. And in this chapter, we go back to Fisher Tiger. It's not just seeing Neptune again. There's several ways that Oda is bringing Fishman Island back up again in this chapter, which, I mean, it feels intentional to me. Anyway, Harold asks Saul to open up a school, which I love. I think that we obviously know that he did, but he's the perfect candidate for it. And then, as I just mentioned, we get to see Fisher Tiger again. 15 years ago, there was a shocking incident, and we see Fisher Tiger and Shanks. Fisher Tiger, still with chains bound on him, running. And we see Shanks, which at first I thought was Shamrock, but his eye is covered. And then you see that he's actually helping Fisher Tiger. He says, "I've left the armory unlocked. Here's how to get there." So as he's rushing past, and I think breaking the chain around Fisher Tiger's neck, he's also telling him that he's made it easier for Fisher Tiger to be able to accomplish what he wants to accomplish, to free these slaves. It is interesting too, and this isn't something I noticed, this is something the patrons pointed out to me, Fisher Tiger has Shanks's bandage in his hand, so he definitely didn't give Shanks the scar. That I think that has, yeah, you can even see the bandage on his eye when you get the close-up of Shanks, but it's all shadowed. You can actually see the bandage wrapping across. So he definitely lost his eye recently. They even make reference to it that it's a recent wound. Somehow he lost his eye recently and it's still bandaged, and Fisher Tiger actually grabs a hold of the bandaging as he's walking by. So he definitely didn't do it to him. But anyway, Shanks was a part of this. Shanks was a part of this story. He was a part of Fisher Tiger being able to free these slaves. We see Boa in her cell. We see sweet little Koala, and they're all running out with the flames behind them like we've seen before. But I love referring back to this and getting to see it again, getting to see a little bit more context, which is what Oda's been giving us left, right, and center in this flashback, stuff that we already knew, but getting it broadened just a little bit more context that makes it that much more vivid. Harold, allow me to introduce you. This is Shanks. It was Shanks. We already knew he had been on Mary Joa, but look at him with his twin walking down the stairs together, dressed in each other's clothes. Again, there's conversations about the different covenants and being a devoted blade and what the different stages are and how you could get to the next one. Okay, I'm finally at the point where I really want to talk about Shanks and Harold a little bit more. So there's this dialogue when he's first introduced to Shanks, and Harold asks him, "Have we met before?" And Shanks responds, "I don't know you, you great lumbering peon. How dare you speak to me as if we're equals? I've always had the blood of Figurland in my veins. Mark my words, I'll be a knight before you." And then Harold cowers back. He's like, "Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Let me bow a little bit. Shall I lick your boot?" Here's the thing. I really like what Oda is doing with Harold's story right now. Like I said, I mock him, as I'm reading the chapter because of the that he is portraying. I like the tragedy. I mean, obviously, reading Harold is painful because you just want to shake him, but also but at the same time, you see how he got here. You see every move, every decision that he made that has led him to this point of no return, and it's tragic. And you want to see him go down a different path. You want to see him say, okay, this path was wrong. I failed. I made the wrong call. Let me pull back and figure something else out. But he just doesn't see something else as an option, seemingly. And so he's going with it, and he's choosing to be the slave of the world government, 1,000 years of servitude, compromise on all of his morals and everything that he believes in, as long as his people will be safe. Whatever it takes, sacrifice me and everything that has made me who I am. Throw it all in the bin if it means that this goal will be accomplished somehow. And I really like the tragedy of this writing. That said, I'm not completely convinced that that's actually what we're witnessing. I think that this scene right here reads to me, the one that I just read off to you, where Shanks is speaking of Harold very lowly and speaking of himself very haughtily, and Harold cowers back. This scene to me reads more like two people who have an understanding. So Shanks did say that he wanted to speak with Harold on Elbaf because they couldn't speak plainly in Mary Joa, and so he wants to be able to speak with him here so that they could speak more plainly. This reads to me as, and I could be totally reaching, This reads to me as two people that are each playing a part and have an understanding. My inclination is to think that he showed up here to play the part of a God's Knight, to play the part of a royal noble, or at least the way that they want him to be a noble, to be a devoted blade, for a purpose. Here in the very next page, he's asking, tell me more about the Holy Land. I want to be the hero that captures the one responsible for the attack. Any clues? You know, maybe he's sincere. Maybe he really does want to be the hero, or maybe he's fishing for information. Much the same Harold, the way he like whimpers back at Shanks, and the way he's like, oh, sweet, new tattoo. Thanks so much, guys. I'll do anything you want. All of this could be true, or it could be an act. I could see, it feels like Oda's type of writing to flip this around in a chapter or two, where we find that actually Shanks was gathering intel or trying to get to a certain point for a certain purpose, but he was never sincerely this way. He never really bought into the Fickerland rites of passage. And just the same, Harold never really was a whimpering pup that bought into my servitude will save my people, but rather he's playing the part for a specific purpose and plans on, you know, not actually giving them 1,000 years of servitude and will turn on them. We already know that Harold does something to get himself executed. We already know that he's considered a failure by Sommers and Killingham when they show up on Elbaf. So we know something goes south, and I'm getting the impression, the way this is written, I'm getting the impression that it's less of the tragedy that it looks like and more of him playing a part for a time, but he's going to do a flip, and we're going to see that there was something else going on here. I'm not saying that I absolutely think that's true. That just kind of seems like something that Oda would do. I do really like the way it's being written now, with him just being a tragic character going down a tragic path, and this is going to be a tragedy for him. But I could just see Oda flipping the script on us instead. Ida, once again, self-sacrificing, doesn't want anyone to look after her. She just wants to look after everyone else. Doesn't want to bother anyone. She's just like, I'll get better. Don't worry about me. Everyone wants to care for her, but she doesn't want that. Harold wants her to be his official wife on the throne, but she enjoys her simple life. I love this page with Loki and Hadruden. We have Loki showing up with this giant bull that he has killed and brought to her. He's visiting her on her sickbed with food. He brought her food in his own, like, brutish way. He brought her food to her sickbed and told her, get better soon. Told her, I miss having you around, in the only way that such a broken child could do, which is by bursting in, shouting, hey, outsider hag! And then says, the bar's nice, a nice chill place for me to hang out. I need it open again. She has opened her doors to him for as long as she possibly could. She has said, you're my son too. Do you want a juice box too? Would you like to come inside my house too? And Loki, this very, very, very broken child, has not trusted her, but he has accepted the juice box. He won't call her mom. He won't accept her to take him in as her son, but he wants to be around her. He wants to go to her bar, and he does call her mom in this chapter. Anyway, he does go to her bar. He does visit her when she's sick and bring her food in a very low-key way. We see his love for her, even though he's been through so much that he can't just give her a hug and tell her he loves her. This is him meeting her needs and being there for her while she's sick. Just the same Hadruden, who has been loved, who has been nurtured, also didn't have a dad around, but by his mother at least was loved and nurtured. He goes out and he tries to find a solution. He tries to find an answer to help her get better. So I do love this picture, even though these two brothers, don't have a good relationship. We see one at home caring for her the best way he knows how, and we have one going out and trying to find an answer the best way he knows how. And it does mean a lot to her. I think she sees the love in both of these acts. Finally, we end the chapter on yet another tragedy, Oda, which is exactly what I was talking about at the beginning of this video. Elbaf is a mess. We have people looking at each other and saying, I don't want you on the throne. Your blood's not good enough. I said we don't want that outsider woman becoming our queen. You agree with us, right, Loki? Estrid's the true queen. She's from our people. They can't take any of our fortune and status. So they poisoned her. They poisoned his mom. Harold's true love, the boy's true mom, both of them, a nurturer and provider for people that would come into port, and someone who many people loved and received love from. These selfish people said, we don't want her on the throne. We want one of our kind on the throne. So we'll kill her. So we'll take her from everyone who loves her. I love her line here. It's got to be probably my favorite line of the entire chapter. She says, it doesn't matter if we're not related by blood. Loki's my dear, sweet boy, just like Hadrudin is. I feel like this has got to be a big scene in this arc as a whole, or a big line in this arc as a whole, not just for Loki, because that has been true in his life. She has treated him like her own, and she has embraced him as her own, and that has been the one real love that he has received in his life. Real evidential love. I do think that Harald really loved him, but real evidential love that he's had in his life, the one person that has stayed with him and labored with him and loved him despite what he gave back to her. But also for Elbaf as an arc, this mentality of, it doesn't matter if we're not related by blood, they're still my own, I think is significant for the issues that war within Elbaf now, and that we're witnessing right here on this page. I think that Ida in general is a very important figurehead for the themes of Elbaf, or some of the themes that Oda is exploring on Elbaf. Anyway, Loki doesn't like their decision to poison his mother. He says, I remember what my real mother did. She cast me out of the tree into the underworld. You want fortune? You people make me sick. Ida ain't gonna die, is she? Because she's the only mother I have. Can't say it to her face, but it is the truest thing about him. He's been called cursed. He's been called a menace. He has supposedly terrorized, which we're seeing some of it, supposedly terrorized areas for no reason. But being Ida's son has been the truest thing for him. Her being the only mother that he's had has been his only real sense of belonging, I think. The only one that has felt real to him in his life. I mean, he has not had a break from birth, from day one, has not had a break. And next chapter, or maybe in 2, he has to witness his father die too. His father, who did really love him and did want him and his brother to protect Elbaf and to make it something great, because he felt that he had to be elsewhere in order to protect Elbaf. He has to watch that be taken from him directly as well. Not to minimize Hadrudin, he's had it rough as well, but he at least had one stable, parent who loved him dearly and who he was capable of receiving the love of, outright. Anyway, this was an excellent chapter to me. To me, this chapter was 10 out of 10. Incredible characterization, great expansion of things. So much packed into this chapter without it feeling rushed or anything brushed over. I loved this chapter so much. I'm so glad we're not done with the flashback yet. Very much looking forward to next week. Please do chat with me about what you thought of the chapter. What did I miss? What are you theorizing or considering? I'll see you again soon. Bye.